Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we come together to learn more about contributing to open source projects on GitHub. This is Hussam from the Microsoft Reactor team. I'm based in Abu Dhabi and I look after the Reactor here. As you know, GitHub is the largest open source community in the world with millions of open source projects. One of GitHub's strengths is how easy it is to collaborate on open source projects and various projects actually. And in this workshops, we are walking you through how easy it is to find and contribute to an open source project on GitHub. We will show you how to create pull requests, communicate with the project maintainers to effectively get your changes accepted. And we will deep dive into the benefits of getting involved in an open source community. We have here our speaker, Alan Sanders, who is a senior cloud architect and a senior technology instructor with over 25 years of experience in software engineering, architecture and design, delivering technology strategy and business solutions over multiple verticals. Excited to have you here, Alan, with us. And without any further delay, we would love to start this session. As a reminder, we're recording the session, so don't worry if you want to review anything and catch up anything that you missed, maybe join later on during the session. Don't worry, it's going to be on our YouTube channel, which I'm going to send it right across in the chat, and keep this environment friendly for all. We're all here to learn together. Again, off to you, Alan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Hussam. I really appreciate it. Pardon me, folks. It's great to be here with you today. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, so it's about 8 a.m. And I woke up this morning to snow, which was pretty strange. But great to be here with you, and really excited to have a chance to kind of talk through this material, this particular Reactor session with you, because I think it's very cool. And it just represents one of the many ways that we as technologists and as community members can work together to continue to advance technology, which is awesome. And that's really why we're here, right, with the reactors. So let me go ahead and talk just a bit about the reactors. Everyone can see my screen, correct? Okay, all right. So what are the reactors? Well, the reactors are great opportunities for us to meet, right, as community members in community spaces, and as technology professionals, get a chance to learn from one another, right? Technology is always changing. There's always new challenges. There are things that many others know that I don't. So having the chance to get together with people and learn from them and bounce ideas off of one another and talk through things like this, I think are really awesome. So we are really looking forward to just spending a little bit of time together today to talk specifically around contributing to an open source project in GitHub. So welcome, glad to have you. From a reactor's perspective, obviously there are multiple locations across the globe, which is awesome. I hope that at some point here in the not too distant future, we'll actually have a chance to start meeting again in person. But for now, this is a great medium and a good opportunity for us to continue this mission of the reactors and continue growing and learning from one another. So a couple of things on code of conduct, just again, Hussam referenced it. Let's just make sure that we're aware of others. We're going to be friendly and patient, welcoming and respectful, open to all questions and viewpoints, be understanding of differences, and we'll be kind and considerate to others. This is really an opportunity for us to just, help one another as this, as the curve, we're trying to stay ahead of the curve technology-wise. These types of events can be really like, unbelievably helpful to allow us to, make that move. So we're here together as a team. Let's learn from one another. So contributing to an open source project on GitHub. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And as Hussam said, we're going to talk about, how do you find projects that might be good candidates for, assistance or for working, especially if you haven't contributed before. So we're going to talk specifically through that. Sam mentioned, I'm Alan Sanders, Principal Cloud Architect. I work in a few different verticals and do a lot of teaching. And probably the one thing that I would want you to know about me most, though, is that I'm very, very passionate about learning, and it includes my own as well as others. So I'm extremely excited to be here with you today. All right. So let's, by way of introduction, let's just kind of all sort of settle on common terms. And by the way, if you have a question, you'd like to pose a question, please feel free to do that in the chat. Would like this to be, an opportunity for us to engage. So as we proceed, if you have a question about something that we're talking about, please feel free to post it. And if it makes sense to answer or right in the moment, I will. If it's something that maybe we'll push to a little bit later, I'll let you know that as well. So let's first start by kind of settling on common terms, right? And a lot of these things we're probably going to know, but I think it's okay to just sort of settle on kind of the nomenclature that we're going to use relative to this topic. So what is GitHub? Well, it is distributed version control, right? And it is, as Hussam said, the largest, right, a host of open source projects in the world. It supports team development, right? So that's the benefit. And the cool thing about this, and especially open source projects, is that team can be spread all over the globe, right? So there's a shared repository, and it's remote, right, for code storage, so that we have a centralized location where the code lives. We can pull that code from the remote to our local systems, work on it locally, right? And then we can take those local changes and push them back into the central repository for view and utilization and integration by others. And there's a whole process around sort of how we do that we're going to be discussing today. Okay, so GitHub, great opportunity, great tool, great platform that we could use for open source contribution. GitHub repos, repositories, right, which is where a project or a program lives, right? So if there's a project, it will live in a GitHub repository. And one of the great features of a GitHub repository is the ability to capture issues, right? And issues within a GitHub repository are a great place for you as maybe a user of that open source project. Gives you an opportunity to post, an idea or thought you have about maybe there's a bug or a suspected bug, right? You can post that as an issue for the entire community of contributors working on that project to review and utilize. You can also use that as a good place to suggest enhancements. So if you have an idea, right, for something that would be a great, addition to a given open source project, a GitHub issue might be a good way to sort of begin that conversation. And as we walk through this and talk through the material today, I think we're going to find and learn and see that communication really is going to be the key, right? Especially in this day and age, when we are all working remotely on these open source projects, where even when we are able to be back in a room together, we're still likely to be contributing remotely. Communication becomes very, very important. The other great thing about GitHub issues, or the repository issues, is it can be a really good spot for documentation. So if you're using that open source project or library in your own applications, and you are wondering about a specific issue you might be seeing or error you might be encountering, and trying to decide if it's connected to, the open source library or something else, the list of issues can be a great resource for seeing what other people are seeing, right? And gaining information about potential, errors or workarounds, things that people might have figured out how to leverage in order to get past the issue that you are currently seeing. So issues become a very, very important sort of part of this whole process. Okay. Feature branches, right? So one of the things that we do with GitHub repositories is we can create branches, feature branches, they're sometimes called, off of the main line. A lot of times what we'll do is fork the repository into our own account, which we'll kind of walk through that flow in just a little while here. But feature branches give us a way to create a branch that provides, sort of an isolated area of development for a specific feature that we might currently be working on, right? Gives us a segregated snapshot of the code base and provides and supports the ability to use parallel work streams, right? So I can branch and be working on one issue, you can branch and be working on a different issue, and then there'll be ways for us to sort of pull all of that potentially back together in a manner that is controlled and managed and very, very orderly to ensure that as we start to pull changes together and look to integrate multiple changes into a single code base again, that we're able to validate and verify that all still sort of plays well together. So the great opportunity here, great tool that we can utilize, and not only on open source projects, but if you're using GitHub for your own, sort of development as well, feature branches are a great mechanism and allow you to really, kind of facilitate and make more sophisticated that team development effort. So a lot of times we'll use them for focused development of maybe a specific feature, or, right, a lot of times we'll use branches to address maybe one or more of those identified issues that we've talked about, right? So if an issue is discovered, documented, the owner of the repository agrees that it is something that is valuable to fix or valuable to implement, then we can tie, a branch and the subsequent pull request to that particular issue or set of issues. And then that gives us traceability, right? As we look back through the history, because that's the other great thing that GitHub gives us is history, right? We have history of everything that's happened on that repository. So the more traceability we can provide as we go, the better it is in case we need to sort of revisit a previous iteration of the code or roll back to something previous. That history becomes invaluable. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to call them out. Pull requests, okay? Pull requests are key, right? And again, I'm sure these are terms that we're all familiar with, but what I wanted to do by way of introduction was just give us a chance to settle on the commonality of them, right? So pull requests. Well, contributors who are working on an open source project, right, or library, can request review for a potential merge of their changes into the repository. And this is beneficial because instead of just letting all changes sort of into the repository whenever folks want, we sort of move into a little bit of chaos potentially, right? Depending on how many changes are coming in, how many people are working on it, we really want to keep that process of integration orderly. So pull requests are a great way to do it because pull requests allow you to indicate to the rest of the project team that you have changes that you would like to merge into the repository. And then it provides the ability for others to review those changes. They can actually pull your branch and potentially, right, if it's exposed, pull your branch, test the changes, right, make sure that everything still works together well. And then they can, provide any comments if they have them, right? If they notice something with the way you've implemented a particular feature, or they have a suggestion of how you might refactor your change to actually be even cleaner or what have you, right? Really, pull requests give us a way as a team, right, to ensure that, as a team, we limit the propagation of bugs or bad practices into the repository. So it's like a gatekeeper, right? It's a good spot for us to, use like a what if, right? What if we implemented this or integrated this change into the repository? Here's what it looks like, right? If you review it and you test it and everything looks good, we can say, yep, it's good to move forward. If you have questions, then you have a record of that, right? If there are comments, there's a record of that, and that flows into the overall history of the repository as well. So very, very beneficial, very, very valuable. I use pull requests all the time, and I'm sure you all do as well. Okay. So what about GitHub and open source, right? So we've already talked about GitHub is used to host multiple, right? That's all caps, but it probably should be even larger, multiple open source projects. There are multiple open source projects. And what does that mean? That means, number one, it's a great place to go when we're looking for a reusable library or something that we can integrate into our applications that make the implementation of our systems easier, right? So if we have a particular function that we need, the likelihood of, in many cases, the likelihood that others have needed and utilized that functionality before might be high. And so rather than rewriting that sort of functionality that has already been created and tested, we can find a reusable library, integrate that into our systems. That functionality can be taken care of, and then that frees us up to focus on the more maybe interesting or challenging parts of our specific problem, right? So GitHub, especially relative to open source, is a great place to go when you're looking for reusable code, but it's also a great place to go when you'd like to contribute, right? When you use a library and you notice something, either a bug or a potential enhancement, GitHub is a great place to go and to coordinate your opportunities to contribute, right? And to make that library, that repository, that project even better, right? In the spirit of teamwork. Okay. So where can I help? Maybe you're asking yourself that. I think that's a good question. Like, so where do I start? How do I find things that are good for, working on? So finding a project. Really, if you're looking for a project to contribute to, good options are libraries or packages that you already use, right? So that if you are aware of a particular package that you're already using in one of your applications, you may have already seen potential enhancements or might see some bugs that are being encountered as you leverage the library. So that becomes a great sort of, real world, real application place to look for opportunities to contribute. You might find, and this is kind of important, the opportunities to contribute don't only have to be limited to the code, right? The opportunities to contribute could also exist in the documentation, which is a very, very important part of the library, right? The readme.md, for example, that file, or maybe other documentation, but that file, right, can be a very, very important tool that we will use, and that someone leveraging the library will use to understand how to use it, right? And understand, see examples of using it, right? And maybe learn about potential things that they need to watch out for. That needs love and care as well, right? That documentation, we want to keep that documentation accurate and up to date along with the code. So, And a lot of times, if you're contributing for the first time, documentation might be a great way or a great place to go, all right, or a great place to start. But as you're looking for an opportunity to contribute, look at the documentation as well as the code. Understand that there are options potentially in both of those places. And then there are multiple options for searching, and we're going to look at just a couple of those right now. And I'm going to post each one of these in the window just because if you wanted to hit them along with me, you could. But I'm going to walk through them here in just a sec. Bear with me for a minute. Actually, I'm just going to send all 4 of these together. Oh, okay. So let's start with the first one here. So github.com is a great place to go to find potential opportunities, right? And specifically, if you're interested in contributing relative to a particular topic, right? So if I click this, and specifically the /search path will take me here, right, and allow me to do some level of keyword search, right? And there are advanced searches available as well. But let's start by just typing in Golang. So if I search for Golang, probably going to get a lot of results, right? And so as we look through here, it's 163,095 repository results. So that's kind of like, wait a minute, how do I figure out where to start, right? Well, maybe you could leverage topics to kind of refine your search, right? Or limit your search to a particular area that you're interested in, like maybe the Golang library itself. So if I click that, as you flow down here, you'll see various, and like if I click on Resty, I'm just picking this one randomly. If I click on Go Resty, you'll see the documentation, right? You'll see the code, the repository, and then here's the issues that we talked about, right? Here you'll see various things that people might have encountered, might be a bug, might be something that's within or under analysis currently. And tags are going to be, or labels are going to be huge as well, right? Labels give us the ability to kind of group issues around a particular, topic or a particular consideration. So all bugs might have the bug label, and then you could filter by that, right, to find the bugs. And so again, I've gone here when I've used the library, was having issues with it to see if others were having the same issue I had, right? It's like a little bit more targeted search than just doing a wide open Bing or Google search. But here we can see, for this particular open source library, there are, some issues defined. We see that there are a couple of pull requests that are out there, right? There are 146 that have been closed, 2 that are open. So you can use this to kind of find potentially, this is one way. github.com/search might be one way to locate an open source project to contribute on, especially as it relates to maybe a topic or area that you're interested in. Okay. Let's look at, here's something from github.com or get the docs, docs.github.com, which talks about using topic searches, right? You can also use topics and then a topic is, in the path as well. The other thing that this sort of calls out is this finding good first issues. So for a given repository, if I go back to Resty, if I go to the end and type contribute, if the repository has them, this is one way to find what the repository owner would consider good first issues to start with. Okay, now this particular repository doesn't have any good first issues, but the GitHub docs recommend Electron. And so we'll look at Electron. And going to the contribute URL or path. Here we see potentially a lot of good first issues, right? And a lot of times you'll see them labeled with good first issue. And so these are intended to be nice ways for you to kind of ease into contributing on a particular project if you'd like, right? So the idea would be that these might not necessarily require as deep a level of understanding of the platform. They might be documentation related, right? As you see here, they could be enhancements, they could be bugs. But these, this / contribute against a given repository can be a great place to find good first issues. Okay. Let's keep rolling. And then there's a couple of other, I'm not going to walk too deep into these, but there's a awesome for beginners, so awesome first opportunities. You might find different, available open source projects that could be, beneficial and might be worth considering in terms of, contribution. Here's a showcases, great for new contributors. Again, specifically catered to somebody who maybe hasn't contributed before, but wants to get started, right? Wants to make a foray into open source contribution. So this can be a great place to go. Goodfirstissue.dev is another one. And the nice thing about this particular, could you copy and paste those things? I thought I did. Did they not come through? Let me copy and paste them again. I just pasted them. Let me know if you don't see them. Okay, great. All right. Yeah, so good. No problem. No problem at all. Nothing to apologize for. This good first issue .dev can be a great place to go. And the nice thing about this particular site is it gives you sort of clickable areas, right, that you can filter by. So if I want to, look for things that are Python related, I can sort of focus there, right? If I want to look for something that is C# related, I can focus there. And it looks like there are ways for you to add your own project, right? If you had an open source project that you wanted to make available to people that are looking maybe to contribute for the first time, you have the ability to integrate that here as well. Okay. And then one more called out here is the GitHub topics good first issue, which is right at the github.com level. You'll see some various, it's kind of a conglomeration of projects that are expected to have good first issues. Okay. So, that's one way that we can sort of locate, or multiple ways, I guess, that we can find a open source project to contribute on. And that's kind of, I would say that's more than half the battle, right? At least for me, when I go out, when I first went to the topic and went to Golang, 163,000 repositories, right? How do I figure out which one I want to work on? Hopefully these tools or these links will provide you a way to drill down more quickly to something that you're really, really interested in. Okay, let's keep rolling. All right, what are we looking for when it comes to open source projects to ensure that they're projects that we want to, contribute to, that they're good candidates, right, for open source contribution? So let's open up, let's go back to Electron, because I think Electron's a good one. Let me go to the code tab. So the things that we're looking for here within the sort of set of information, we're looking for a license file. And we're looking for, we're looking to be sure that that license indicates open source. MIT license is a very, very common open source license. And so we're going to be looking to see something like that, right? So we're looking for a license file to kind of confirm that it is intended to be an open source project. The other thing we'll look for, as I've already mentioned, is the README, right? README, when you go to the root of a project, README automatically comes up, right? But you can drill down into it if you want as well. And this just gives you key document, or can give you key documentation about how to use this library, where to go potentially for additional information, right? Some examples of plugging it in, right? And as I said, this can be one of the spots where a contribution might make sense, right? Even if you see something misspelled, or if something is worded in a way that maybe is hard to understand, this could be one of those good places for you to begin in terms of contribution. You could, look to potentially post something here through pull request and see if that doesn't help others. Because if you were sort of confused by something, then there's probably a good chance that others were as well. So it's just one of those great, great parts of GitHub, right, where we can collaborate together, even though we're not in the same physical location, right? Okay, so we're looking for license, we're looking for README. Now, there might be two other things. Now, they're optional, but hopefully the project has them. If the project has them, you should definitely refer to them. And that is the contributing documentation. The contributing documentation is, probably going to show you what you need to do, how you need to set up your machine in order to build an environment that allows you to contribute, right? It's going to be some things you need to know, right, for contributing. It might have information about how they want, how the owner wants you to contribute in issues, how you ask for help. These are all sort of good potential links that you can use in considering to, contribute, especially for the first time. You can use this information to just help you, right, understand kind of the rules of the road for that project. And, if someone owns this project, hi folks, I really apologize. My power went out. My internet's back, not back up yet, but I'm tethered right now to my phone. So hopefully this works out. So my apologies. I don't know if it's the snow or what's going on. Is everyone able to still hear me okay?
Yes, all good now.
Okay. All right, let me return to where we left off. Okay, got it. All right, really apologize for that. So this I'll have to see if we're able to. This information provides a useful detail that we can leverage for our issues tracking. And, for the particular repository might provide a good way for us to understand what the, owner of the repository is looking for from contributors. So this contributing is a good document to look at. And then let's also look at another important document for a given repository is the code of conduct document. We want to make sure that and I'm going to turn my video off to preserve bandwidth to make sure that we don't come up with issues. The code of conduct is a great document that we can leverage for understanding the rules of the road, as I said, right? These are the things that the project repository owner wants you to know, right? And the rules that they expect all contributors to sort of follow, right? And it includes pledge standards, potentially, right? Could include whatever information you want to, the owner wants to include, but it's a good resource to use and utilize to make sure that, we are, as we look to contribute to this particular project, that we will be following, and that'll just cut down on friction, right? If we follow the principles of the code of conduct, we follow along with contributing, and we're able to build out our contribution according to that definition or that set of rules, we're more likely to see our contribution approved, right? We're more likely to see the owner or the other contributors sort of accept that and pull it in. If we're violating, code of conduct or one of the contribution sort of guidelines, then it's likely that, that will come back as a comment, right? Okay, so let's go back over here. All right. So what to look for, again, we talked, look for the /contribute URL can be beneficial if there's one available. Look for labels that indicate good first issue. And then as you dig in, right, you may find other linked issues or pull requests for review. And we sort of looked at that. We saw in the Rusty library, for example, there are some issues defined. There are a couple of outstanding pull requests. Looking at the closed pull requests can be beneficial as well, because you're able to see, kind of what changes others might have made, and changes that were accepted or approved to help you understand maybe how you want to target your contribution as well. Okay. Another great way that's really not necessarily directly in the code or the documentation, but is still valuable from an open source perspective, is you could sponsor a project. Some open source projects are looking for, could be looking for financial contributions, might be looking for tech support, mentoring, right? Depending on if it's an area of expertise for you. Sponsoring a project can, be another way to help and to contribute, right? And it aligns really well with the volunteer spirit of open source, okay? So if interested, you can look for a sponsor button on the main page. It would be probably up here. There may be links for how you can sponsor elsewhere as well, but, keep that in mind as a potential option also. All right. So as I've mentioned, contributing to an open source repository, communication is key, right? Especially because we're separated. We're not all in the same physical location. We want to, and we might be in different time zones, right? So practice active communication with others that are involved in that repository, right? Propose updates, ask about potential bugs. The key is to sort of begin a conversation, begin that stream of communication, and leverage it effectively for, really knowing how to proceed, right? In a way that's really going to help that project, and that can be beneficial from your perspective as well. Without it, right, when we don't communicate enough, and this is not only the case with open source projects on GitHub, right? This is kind of just a de facto truth. But when we don't communicate, right, the risks we run is that it might be inefficient, right? There could be others or someone else already working on the same issue that you would like to work on. Now, it should be picked up, and it should be, sort of commented accordingly and attached potentially to a particular branch. But if it hasn't been or isn't, communication is a way for you to just make sure that, yes, no one has already started working on this one, so I can start, right? And then we won't have two people wait, one of the two people wasting their time potentially. It might also give you an opportunity to identify somebody to pair with. So if somebody's already picked it up and you're interested, could be an opportunity to pair. The other thing that you might run into if you don't communicate is, you might find that your proposed update doesn't, for whatever reason, right, align with the project's vision. And so that that repository owner, right, has final say. So we want to make sure that as we're proposing modifications or contributions, that we can allow that to flow through the necessary review process. And this is really key, right? We just need to keep an open mind. We need to be respectful and try not to take things personally. And I say that to myself as well as you, right? As we're engaging with folks in communication, sometimes that communication can come off terse because we only have a small space or we're very, very busy. Let's just try to keep an open mind, be respectful of one another, and then try not to take things personally. And hopefully, they aren't intended personally. Okay, let's keep going. All right, issues as a resource. We've discussed this already, but I just want to reiterate. Issues can provide us with a great place to find opportunities. You can check assignees and pull requests, again, to make sure that someone's not already working on a particular issue. You can comment your intent to help on that issue for visibility and feedback. And you could potentially, if you wanted, if the repository supports it, create a new issue, right? Now, sometimes the repository owner will provide a template, and you should follow that template, right? So if there is a template for the issue creation, then follow that, right? You'll want to adhere to that template because it ensures that there's consistency across the issue communication. Here's our high-level workflow for contributing, okay? Typically what we do is we fork the repository into our own account. We clone it locally. We create a branch. You don't have to, but it's a good step, right, to create a branch because of that segregated sort of area of parallel work stream that we discussed earlier. And then we enter into sort of a cycle, right, where we code, we commit, we push, we submit a pull request. There might be a set of automated status checks that run on the repository to ensure that everything coming into the repository follows, the standards and best practices that the owner has decided to integrate or implement. And it may lead to some review and feedback, right? You may get comments on the modifications that you've submitted, which might lead you back into additional coding for additional updates to and that cycle, kind of continues until hopefully you get to a spot, right, where everybody's satisfied, right? You receive approval for your pull request, and then your pull request can be merged into the rest of the repository. Okay, so that's sort of the high-level flow that we're looking to follow. When you create a pull request, make sure your title is succinct but descriptive. Provide context in your description to outline changes. And again, there might be a template defined for submitting a pull request. Be sure you follow that template because it really helps maintain consistency across the repository itself. You can link your pull request or PR to the issue or issues that it's intended to address. You can create a draft PR if you're really just looking for feedback, right? If you're seeking input or guidance on an approach, you have an idea, you can submit that pull request as a draft and then get that feedback to determine if you want to sort of move it forward. And then look for that those comments and feedback and address them accordingly as part of that cycle. All right, so let's look at creating our first pull request quickly here. And this link, grab that link. Put that in the window as well. if we navigate to this link, this is a Microsoft Learn topic. Again, great. Microsoft Learn is a great platform for, gathering information, gaining information. Are we going to talk about GitHub packages? Not so much in this particular session. But yeah, there will be some links to additional information in this topic that might lead you in the direction of that. So sorry. All right. Okay. So this Microsoft Learn topic can be nice. It's a module, right, that steps you through multiple units for multiple units of information, and you can flow through one by one. These I'm going to skip over because it basically is the information that I shared with you. Definitely go back and take a look at this, walk through this, right? I would strongly recommend that you do that. You can launch there now and follow along with what I'm going to be doing here. We're going to move over to here. So here's our exercise. We're going to use the first contributions project or repository as a way to just sort of quickly practice this flow. So if I go there, we'll see the first contributions, right? We'll see the 4 files that we would expect to see in a repository. And down here, there are sort of some step-by-step things to follow for how you might create a pull request and then see that sort of implemented and integrated eventually when the owner. So it's really just a playground, right? It's a sandbox for practicing this entire flow. So first thing I would do is fork the repository, which is up here in the upper right. Let me make this a little larger to make sure that the resolution is okay. So I forked the repository. And now the next thing I would want to do is clone the repository. And I'm going to do this in Windows Subsystem for Linux in Ubuntu. Or I would do git clone. And all I did was copied this link. So git clone. And that's going to pull that remote repository down to my local system, and it's pulling it from my fork, right? That's an important sort of distinction. If I navigate to that folder now, Git Status, for example, can be used to sort of understand where we are. We're currently on the master branch. I can do a git checkout -b to create a new branch, my branch. So we're now, if we do git status, on my branch. And then what we could do is, you could either go in using a text editor, or if you have Visual Studio Code, you can launch into that folder. And then the recommended change from this particular repository owner is to simply add your, where does he say it here? Open the contributors.md file and add your name to it somewhere in the middle, right? So this is sort of the recommended change. If I go to contributors.md, I could pick some location here, for example, add my name. Maybe my GitHub handle, right? I could then save this file. And then either through the command line or here with using the Git integration directly in Visual Studio Code, I can stage that change, add a comment, and then commit it. And then down here, we can see a way to sort of push that or publish that up to the remote repository. And it's asking you here, Visual Studio Code is trying to be helpful. It said, hey, you made a change. Do you want to create a pull request? I'm not going to do that here. Instead, what I'm going to do is go over here. And if we look, we should now see my branch, right? And we could create a pull request. So we could submit that, pull request, give it a meaningful name, give it a set of description of what we've done. Then you can click create pull request. I'm not going to in this particular case, but you certainly could do that and should feel free to do that. But what we're, in essence able to do then, if we go back here to the README, we're able to commit that pull request. Submit that pull request, right? And those changes will then be available for review, right? The repository owner can then open that up, take a look at it, see what changes you've made, provide comments if there is some feedback. We enter that sort of cycle. And then if they like it, they can approve it. And then depending on how the repository is configured, it might either be automatically merged or there might be a separate merge step. Okay. So we're almost done here. A couple of more slides. So that's sort of how you create your first pull request. If you haven't done it before, especially relative to this kind of open source contribution, right? Let's do a quick knowledge check. That's one of the other cool things about these Microsoft modules. If we look here, and you should definitely feel free to move through all of these units because you can earn experience points. And then with those experience points, you can sort of gain trophies, which is kind of cool. What is the best place on a GitHub repository to find where you can help a project? So the README, search bar, license file, or the issues list. Okay. What is the preferred way to ask for help or reviews on a pull request? Send a negative or disrespectful comment to the project's maintainers. That's, pretty clearly not the right answer, right? We could create an issue. We could add a comment in the pull request. We could send an email to a random committer on the project. So we can add a comment in the pull requests. What is needed before you can create a pull request on GitHub? Do you need to send a patch file to the maintainers via email? Should you clone a repo, commit changes, and force push? Get accepted as a team member, or fork a repo, clone it, commit changes, and push to your fork? That would be the correct answer. If we got them all right, we did. Okay. So quick wrap up here. What did we cover? We covered finding opportunities to contribute to an open source project. How do we find them, right? How do we locate the right opportunities? And then actually walking through the process of forking, cloning, branching, creating, coding, and then creating a pull request. That is, sort of the step up to where the repository owner can review and then approve and potentially merge. Take a look at that Microsoft Learning module. Take a look at those other links in terms of helping you find something. Look for opportunities to get involved. Be confident, right? Any change, any enhancement, any fix to documentation is going to make that repository better, and you have something to offer, okay? And then in general, right, just look for opportunities to promote code reusability as a principle. That's something that we're looking to kind of work through in all aspects of software. All right, some locations where you can connect, and then something that's really important, if you would please, is to fill out this survey. If you could fill out this survey and use event code 13055, that is a great way for you to provide us feedback on this session, and just helps us understand, what's going to, meet you as community members exactly where you need. Oh, thanks, Hussam, for sending that out. Any final questions before we wrap up? Oh, that's great. Reactor Community Update Newsletter. All right, if there's no further questions, please enjoy the rest of your day, and it was a pleasure being here with you. And again, my apologies for the power outage.